Okay, guys, we're getting into the research portion of the meeting. First up, we got Chris Partridge. Guys, we got Chris Partridge. He's been an RIT student. He's hired RIT students. He's been on all sides of it, and he's going to drop some knowledge.
I want to clarify ahead of time that I wrote this morning, and a little bit last night. So anyway, hi, I'm Chris Partridge. I don't think I know anybody here. I'm looking, do I see any of my former students? No. Okay, so a bit about me. I'm an RIT alumni. I did my Bachelor's of Science in Computing Security back when it was called Computing Security in 2018. My day job is that I'm a senior security engineer and engineer manager at Amazon. I'm going to be very clear for the corporate overlords here. I'm not going to talk about Amazon hiring practices today, and everything that I will discuss is coming from other historical data that I have. I've been involved at RIT on and off since. I've been an adjunct teaching intro to cybersecurity. I love cats. That's my cat, Ida. Fun fact, I have an NFC chip in my right hand, dangerousthings.com, really cool stuff. Anyway. So why am I here? I'm here because I've been on both sides of the table. So I've been an RIT career fair attendee. I've been an interviewer. I did first round. I did second round. I'm currently involved in a lot of hiring decisions. I've been involved in hiring for a while. It's part of why they make you a manager. I did, in fact, once write 14 pages single-spaced about writing modern resumes. One of some folks in my class asked. And I struggled in college. When I was a second year, I remember really distinctly the career fair sucked. It was awful. I had a horrible time. I felt like I was totally thrashing. Absolutely nobody was interested in my resume. All of the companies that I was this is a safety company, surely I'm qualified enough here. They were like, nah. And that sucked. And I didn't really understand it from an outsider perspective, so I want to give you all the insider perspective. So hopefully it doesn't suck. Number one goal here. I want to give you insight into how the other side of the table works at the career fair. What is a company's goal at the career fair? How do we deal with the scale of the career fair? How do we make hiring decisions? What data do we use? What's important? What's not important? And then translate into that insight into specific tactical recommendations for you. Focus on this. Don't focus on that. Think about this. You should practice this, etc. And then number three, ideally, I will not totally run over. This was way more slides than I thought I was going to make, so I'll try to leave time for Q&A. So, and then one additional scoping note, this class is just about how hiring works at a career fair. At a mid-sized to large company, which is hiring engineers. You're hiring consultants, this may not apply. You're a small company, this may not apply. You're the government, this may not apply. I did my homework. You can expect similar processes from other managers that I've talked to that make similar hiring decisions, go to career fairs, so on and so forth. But really, really critically, this is not universal. I'm not claiming that this is universal. You have been told many things about what you should do to prepare for getting a job in general and for the career fair and so on and so forth. This is not me being all those other people were wrong. I'm great. This is me saying, this is what I've observed in this very specific vertical. So, what's the goal of an employer at the career fair? Yes, this is going to involve audience participation. If nobody raises their hand, this is going to get really, really weird really fast. What's the goal? What's my goal at a career fair? I go to a career fair. Any hands at all? All right. Okay. How many? Okay. How many applicants are there? Wrong. Few thousand. But great answer. So employers' goals here, right? A university program is an investment in future talent for the company. We're looking at a moderate horizon payoff. We want to keep the company growing with new talent, new people entering the field. And there's, social benefit, there's mentorship opportunities. You Google this, it's like interns give the company a fresh look. It's not really it. You're there to provide value, and you're really there to provide value when we extend a return offer to you. But specifically, we need to filter 5,000 attendees into some number of internship offers that our company can handle. We don't have infinite space for interns. Y'all look great. I would take you all if I could. We literally can't support that. And we need to do a lot of really, really highly efficient filtering. Not all attendees are going to be relevant. There are going to be attendees with different majors, different interests, different experience levels. But many could be, and we don't know by looking out into the crowd who is going to be relevant to us. So we need to apply a consistent process to look for candidates that scales up. We need to be able to talk to as many people as come to our booth. I already covered that. So I want to start with this. I personally rejected 97 to 98% of candidates that I talked to. I don't have a specific number because I no longer remember. I don't even think I could have counted how many people I talked to. But I did some napkin math. It's on the last slide. I believe that I personally evaluated 80 to 100 people in 6 hours with 0 breaks. That was all for 4 or 5 internship positions. I was a dual role interviewer. I was interviewing software engineers and security engineers. So actually, if you talked to me, you had a slightly higher chance of being placed than just like in general. So, you know, the actual company acceptance rate was probably between 1% and 3%, most likely 1.5%. And as a really good benchmark here, RIT's acceptance rate is 67 to 71%. If you're a freshman, you did the easy part. This is the hard part. So how does that actually work behind the scenes? Big number, scary number, a lot of work to do. How do we break it down, right? So we're preparing in advance. There are literally meetings that we run ahead of time with recruiting, managers, the engineers that are going to be there, and we are roundtabling what's important. What roles are open? What skills are going to be important? How much space did we book at the career fair? How many engineers are going to be there? How many people were we trying to talk to? What are the people that we're looking for? Are we looking for undergraduate candidates? Are we looking for graduate candidates? Do we need specific years of experience? What would the criteria be if recruiting felt that there was like, oh, there's a really strong first year, and we normally wouldn't look at first years, but maybe we should look at this one. What are those criteria, right? We also standardize on how we're going to evaluate each applicant. There's going to be variance in the discussions that we have. We're not robots. We want to engage with you personally, but we will settle on what are the questions that we're going to ask. General format. What are they going to look like? How long are they going to take? What's the scoring criteria? What does correct look like? What does correct enough look like? Are we giving half credit? Would we allow that? And how long should we spend per applicant? In our case, it was 3 to 5 minutes. And then additionally, tactical stuff. How are we going to organize this? How's recruiting going to be involved? When does engineering need to make a decision? When does a manager need to make a decision? How do we signal that an applicant should get a next day interview? How do we defer or decline when the majority of people do not get a next day interview? And then the day of, we just stick to the process. We are just trying to get through. So what actually happens when you see me the day of? What happens when you walk up to me, right? The rough steps are, you're gonna give me a handshake or a fist bump or a wave or whatever, and you're gonna hand me your resume. You will deliver, I will say like, hey, you know, I'm Chris, you know, can you like introduce yourself? I'm gonna have your resume. I am going to skim your resume while I nod along to whatever your prepared elevator pitch is. I am going to be looking and listening for very specific skills, experience, projects, etc. So let's just do like a really quick survey of this room. How many people know a programming language? How many people know PHP? Yeah. So we were looking for PHP applicants for our software engineers. Not a lot of people there. And that's okay. We're going to talk to everybody to find the PHP engineers. So I'm going to be looking and listening through your specific like skills, experience, projects. You know, what am I seeing? I'm looking very quickly. This is really only going to take about 30 seconds. If I key on something that's interesting, if there's a particular award, particular skills, if there's a super cool project, something that I'm like, oh, I just want to like learn about that because I'm like 4 hours deep into this and this sucks. You know, I'll ask you about that. For maybe, I mean, if you're unlucky and there's absolutely nothing that I'm like, oh boy, this is not going to go well, I will ask you nothing. And if there is something, you know, I'll try to keep it like time box to a minute. Like, tell me about this. You know, what I just saw this on your resume, or I heard that in your pitch. What's going on there? Can you tell me more about it? So, and then I am going to ask you some questions. This is our standard question set. It's the one that we've prepared before. And talk you through them, right? It's not, I'm not grilling you. Like, if you're like, ooh, I'm nervous, I'm a little stuck, I get it. You know, I'll give you a hint, like, we'll talk through it together. You can talk out loud, like, we can and ha about stuff together. And then after I'm done with the questions, I'm gonna start wrapping up our chat and calculate a score in my head. That's a great time for you to ask me a question or two. And unfortunately, everybody is directed to apply online. I'm sorry, recruiting is generally going to require this. Just be ready for that. Just sit down, get all applications in, like after you're done with the career fair, or just like do it after each booth, whatever. But they're gonna require it whether or not you are getting an interview in most cases. And I'm going to signal to our recruiters if you are a priority to get an interview. Do they need to go talk to you? And I really have to emphasize, I do this 80 to 100 times in the 6 hours that the career fair is open. Like, I think the crowd really only started to abate at like 3:30 for us. So that was 5.5 hours straight of just talking to people. I am tired. I'm an introvert. I hate this. I do not love interviewing. It's not my favorite thing. It's disappointing to a lot of people, but I care very much about like us getting the right talent. So I do it anyway. But it's exhausting. I'm so tired. I'm parched. It's not great. Nobody likes it. And then everybody, because you've shaken so many hands, like everybody who goes to the career fair gets sick afterwards. It's awful. So like you have to plan around like most of your team is going to be out. Anyway. So that's how it works. How do we actually get to the meat of this? How am I making an interview or no interview decision, right? I'm doing screening when I'm at the career fair, 5 minutes, that's the time, to figure out if we are going to take you to a next day interview. The standard rubric that I was working with, this is about a company that's like now bought by another company, essentially defunct, by the way. I'm not like leaking secrets here. But so like the rubric that we were using was we had 3 short answer questions. I had 1 easy question, 1 medium question, and 1 hard question. We're expecting most people to get 1 out of 3, maybe 2 out of 3. If you get 0 out of 3 or 0 out of 2, you're done. We wrap up a little early. Because I want to get to the next candidate. It's nothing against you, it's just, you know, I want to be looking for the candidates that are going to bring the business value, and you shouldn't have your time wasted. You should be able to like go to the next booth and pursue that. So we'll also add some flex in there for judgment. If there are particularly relevant skills that we are looking for, or some remarkable thing, like, okay, you know, you're the RITSEC tech lead, like, here's a bunch of experience, like, oh, you're just like a little nervous today and you missed the hard question. Okay, sure, whatever. You can like come and chat. But it's worth noting what's particularly relevant is a judgment call by the evaluator. This is not something that we have like a fixed rubric for, right? So if you don't tell us that cool stuff that you've been doing all semester, I don't know. This seems like kind of a gimme. It's not. It genuinely isn't. I have reviewed a bunch of resumes for my classes, and there is an unbelievable amount of information that was more or less hidden or not present at all on the resume. And so provided a lot of feedback on like, bring that up, please. People are going to need to notice that. We'll talk about that more in a minute. So anyway, a couple example questions. This is the easy question. What's the difference between hashing and encryption? Who here knows the difference? You don't have to tell me. You can pretend. You can be like, oh yeah, I'm here. I'm ready for it. Okay. So many second and third years failed that question. So many actually that I created separate slides for it in Intro to Cybersecurity, where I put my favorite picture ever. This is my friend's cat Nova wearing a hand knit hat and skirt. Just thinking about what is encryption, what is hashing, followed immediately by this slide and like a 5-minute rant about like, please, 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 if you're not able to answer a 100 level question, what are you building on? You need a strong foundation. We're here to test that. So anyway, so that's one example question, kind of a, you should know. Another example question or two, and I'm just like diving into this because I want to give you more examples. Say you have like a website where anonymous people post comments on funny cat pictures. What are some threats that you might need to mitigate? And what would you do to mitigate them? This was a really fun question because I could like expand or compress it into whatever I wanted. The engineer that we were hiring was an application security engineer. How many people here are interested in application security? That's kind of some very tepid hand raises for that. It's great. It's a wonderful field. I really enjoy it. So, you know, this kind of question, great for follow-ups. Nudge applicants for like the depth, for the creative thinking. Are you looking at, you know, client-side risks? Are you looking at server-side risks? Can you explain the risk to the business? Can you explain risk to the users? Looking for like OWASP Top 10 coverage, but also drilling into business risks. And it's a really fun question because it really helps us get at the heart of like, can you understand and prioritize like what's most important to remediate? So lots of fun. And then if you get enough questions, you know, you have enough interesting stuff on your resume that's, again, really specific to us. It's not like you're the #1 head honcho here. It's you have skills that are very particular to what we are doing, probably by chance. You know, we will proceed to the interview stage. I'm not really going to go into as much details with these because I think in general people get interviews. Like what's happening, why is this happening, how does this work, etc. It's longer form, it's less obscure. But next day, in case you haven't done it, the next day is 1 to 2 interviewers in person, generally 30 minutes, same like Gordon Fieldhouse or whatever. We're going through your resume, we're checking relevant expertise, we have longer form technical and behavioral questions, and we want to sell you on working for the company. There are 250 other employers at the career fair. If you got to the interview stage with us, you probably got to the interview stage with somebody else. We want you to pick us. And give you some time to reverse interview. Ask about like a day in life, like how's this work? Is this just like you're hiring interns for coffee and we get to observe, or like am I a real part of the team? Do I get real responsibilities? And so on. And then we proceed from there to more interviews, coding evaluations, etc. I wish I had a whiteboard, but you know, outside of from the like what, let's say 500 people that we talked to, we had 20 next day interview slots. We had 4 or 5 positions. So really, really quickly filtering people down into, I think we had like a 100%, there's one person who didn't accept our offer, but everybody else did. But we're trying to like get everybody down through that pipeline as quickly and efficiently as possible. Okay, so was that cool and insightful? Was that useful? Did you know all that? I think probably like if you thought about it, you were like, I could have figured that out, right? Like sure, you know, I look at the website, it says 5,000 people. These, like, I'm getting rejected after rejected after rejected after rejected. Like, either something is wrong and I'm the worst candidate ever, or like there's just not that many jobs. But are you applying that knowledge is the question, right? Like I could have figured out most of that intuitively if I like sat down and thought about it. I didn't. So here's how you apply it, right? So what's the data that I used during evaluation? Hands in the air. It wasn't Internet Explorer market share. What did I use? How are people graded? Talked about 5 minutes ago. Yes. Did I look at your LinkedIn? So the data that you're actually being evaluated with at the career fair, the stuff that you were doing the night before, right? You know, you should be focusing on things that we're going to heavily index on. So we're going to be really, really indexing on your answers to technical questions. If you can't get technical questions, I can't push you through because your resume is beautiful, but you don't seem to know what we're working on. You probably have a lot of really cool other areas of domain expertise, but I can't help you. And we may also key on specific things on your resume, elevator pitch, et cetera. Generally, when I was there, the majority reason that people were getting forwarded onto interviews was because they nailed the technical questions. And even if it's not like nailing a technical question is not like, oh, I can instantly belt out like a textbook response. If you thought through it, that's fine. You know, that's full credit to me. If you even got it wrong in the end, but I heard like how you thought through the issue, that's partial credit. And that was the big source of people getting passed on, you know, to the next stage. And then in interviews, we're still mostly indexing on your answers to behavioral and technical questions. We will also have more time to like dig into your resume. We'll have time to converse with you. You'll have time to converse with us. And in rare circumstances, you can also get yourself punted out of this. If I catch a lie on your resume, if I'm like, what's this project? And you're like, ooh, I'm not sure. If you describe a technology, we ask a basic, and we're not trying to trap you, right? Like if a trick question is ping TCP or UDP? How many hands for TCP? How many hands for UDP? Okay, what's the real answer? Do y'all know? Okay, all right, okay. I thought that was not cool when Cisco gave me that question. So we're still, you know, we're still looking for things outside of that rubric. We still occasionally do catch things. I did have a really uncomfortable situation where a candidate made a kind of passing sexist remark, which was really uncomfortable, and got them immediately booted from the interview loop. So anyway, so if you don't have something hinky happen, something weird, everything is going to like proceed normally, and let's like hop into what actual tips I can offer you, right? So for screening questions, we have roughly 1 minute per question, in my case. It's best to get the answer correct. Thinking out loud is really strongly recommended. We didn't lose credit. I don't know of any place that I have ever talked to where they're like, oh, thinking out loud is a real red flag for us. We're going to remove credit if they think out loud. You're nervous. You might clam up a little bit. I get it. Just take a deep breath and be like, I forget what hashing is. I'm going to work this out from first principles. I know it has to do, we do that on passwords. It's not reversible. Okay, so it's, you know, blah, blah, blah. Anyway. And so if you get it right, great. If you get it wrong, you get partial credit, probably. Shortish answers are going to be preferred. I do not need to, I don't need a like from first principles explanation of like why you would use encryption or hashing. I just need to know the difference. If you want to like expand on that or you have more to say, just offer to elaborate. You know, keep it kind of terse. Don't be like rambling for 5 straight minutes and like resisting like interruption, being like, you know, just chill. Review the basics beforehand. Don't lose on easy questions due to lack of preparation. If you're kicking yourself like I should have known that, once or twice is fine. Like all day is not great. Take a deep breath if you get nervous. And really remember, like everybody interviewing you was looking for internships once too. We're familiar with this. This sucks. It's okay. Like, we're not judging you. Even if you like bomb all 3 of my questions, my assumption is we're probably just not a great fit for this person, not what a moron. You're okay. It's not embarrassing. It's totally fine. So, on to resumes, right? The other source of major points is I'm going to skim your resume. I'm going to listen to what you have to say about your experience. So here is a graph of where people are looking when they look at a resume. So when they're skimming, like I'm going to do, I have 15 to 30 seconds. It's not a lot of time to digest a lot of information. We're looking for major headers, recent experience, looking for keywords, looking for things that we're like, oh, I really care about that. And so when we key on something, it's helpful if it has punchiness, if it's like impact focused. But it's not, like, I care about that a lot. You should have punchiness in your resume. You should have impact. You should be able to describe all that. But it's not actually like that big of a deal if you're like, oh man, I wish I could just rewrite this one line until I could like get it perfect 30 minutes later. It's not really that impactful for the career fair, because if I see a cool line, I'm just gonna be like, hey, what's that? And then you can tell me. And you really wanna make sure that your resume has what is going to make you unique and interesting. You're programming. What are you programming with? What are you doing? What are your projects? What have you been engaged with? Do you have a home lab? What's in that home lab? What are you learning from that home lab? What are the things that are going to set you apart from your peers? If you're just listing out, I have taken all these classes, everybody else has. That doesn't really help me. And so this is going to end up being like, you need for people to be able to read your resume quickly, not get all of the information from your resume, right? Like, you're right there. You're literally standing in front of me. I will just ask. So when we're prepping an interview, right, we're going to spend a few minutes instead of 15 seconds, but it's still skimming. We're not going through line by line and being like, oh, this person said that they did this, in Python and it's open source. Okay, Jamie, pull up their GitHub. We're not doing that. So if you're thinking like, okay, oh my God, it is the night before the career fair. I've been slacking on updating my resume. What do I got to do? There's going to be, first and foremost, a ton of formatting guidance. Not a lot of it matters, not here. But if you know how I'm going to read your resume, you can start to optimize your resume within that. It doesn't really actually matter if you have your experience first, or your objectives first, or your academic experience first, or whatever. I am going to skim all of that equally in like 5 seconds apiece. So figure out what's most remarkable or significant about you, and make sure that that's easy to find when somebody skims through. Like, top half of the first page, easy to find. If you have an awards section, but they're really cool awards, and it's all the way at the bottom, just because the section is small, you gotta figure out how to work that up higher, because you do not want me to miss it. You really don't. You want to be able to say like, hey, these are the really cool things that I'm doing. This is the really cool stuff that I bring to the table that I'm like, oh, wow, I want to continue this conversation. This is a good candidate. This is somebody who could bring a lot of value to our organization. So like formatting, design, et cetera, choices, obsessing over that kind of stuff for the career fair, it's not going to help you. As long as it's easy for me to understand, so like don't stray too far from a convention. If I like cannot read it because you are using Comic Sans and pink font on white paper, just stop. Keep it relatively simple and easy to understand. But in this particular situation, don't sweat the small stuff. Like that's not going to be the biggest thing that you can be doing right now. The biggest thing that you can be doing is making sure that I get all of the really cool things about you in as little time as possible. Same goes for your elevator pitches. Many of your elevator pitches can be distilled down to, hi, I'm name, a number year something major, seeking a time frame internship, I'm interested in fields, and some fun, interesting, or relevant fact. That's fine. It's cool. No problem with that. It's a little generic. Like, after 5 hours of hearing that, I want to hear anything else, but I'm obligated to give you a fair shake. Like, everybody else has been given a fair shake, so I'm not going to, like, don't go wild on these. But the fun, interesting, or relevant part is more important than you realize. And so I had a roommate in year 2, Stefan. Hopefully he's not watching this. Stefan, hopefully his parents aren't watching this. Stefan, when he was hungover on a particular Saturday, was like, I'm just going to torment one of my friends by creating a Twilio bot that spammed cat facts to them like every 30 minutes. And I, meanwhile, had been working on like my pièce de résistance, like really cool security project. and nobody cared about my project at all. And everybody loved the cat fact spot. And I'm like, it took him 2 hours when he was so hungover, he was like drooling on his keyboard. And they loved it. And I didn't get that for years until I conducted 50 near identical screenings. And then I wanted somebody with a cat fact spot. I want anybody with a cat fact spot. So if you have something that's fun or interesting, don't discount that, right? Not everything on your resume has to be like crazy high effort. You can be a person. You can be personable. You can be interested in specific spaces within technology. You can be interested in societal justice and climate change and like go to these mission-driven companies and be like, hey, I'm not here to just be a robot. I'm here because I give a shit. And we will eat it up. We're so excited. Like if you have a real connection or can bring a real connection to that, it really breaks up the doldrums. It will get you more time with people, and that increases the chance that they're going to key on like, oh, this is really, like, this is an interesting person. They should get the extra credit. Like we should take them to the interview the next day. So as far as practicing and making improvements, right? This is prescriptive guidance. Most of this has been like a little nebulous. This is prescriptive guidance. Take your resume, take your elevator pitch, get together. I was really excited to see this earlier. But get together with a friend, professor, RA, alumnus, whoever, set a 30-second timer on your phone, hand your resume to them, and make them read your resume while you give them your elevator pitch. Stop reading at 30 seconds, ask them what was special about you. And if they're like, you're a computer science major, that's the wrong outcome. You need to like be emphasizing what is making you different so that companies with these niche requirements, because there are going to be a bunch of really weird niche requirements, can key on that and be like, oh yeah, okay. I see either like this is a fit or this is not a fit. You want to be sorted into one of those two buckets immediately. It really helps preserve your time and your sanity. You know, so really compare what they say to what you thought they would say, to what you want them to say, to what you want them to key on. And then additionally, really study with peers, quiz each other about things that you've learned in class. Like if you can like go through like one of your old study guides, like seriously, like just go on my courses, grab a study guide, quiz your pals. This is such a dorky recommendation because I probably wouldn't have done this in a million years, but you deserve the truth, and you should do that if you want to get hired. So quiz each other about things you've learned in class, stay engaged with the material, stay engaged with the curriculum, practice often. And so also, like this is a really tactical recommendation also because a lot of folks at the fair are alumni. Like when I did the fair, we had like little tiger stickers. Do they still do that? Okay, so we had little tiger stickers. You could tell that we were an alumni. And like out of the 6 engineers that I was there with for like the company that we were representing, I think like 5 were alumni. We know what you're supposed to know. We're building our questions based off that. We're not going to be going out like into the Wild West and being like, how do you configure a Huawei switch? I mean, maybe we have a very specific requirement, but we're not just like pulling something out of midair and being like, that's an interesting factoid. Especially for like the easy medium questions, we are pulling stuff that should be in your coursework or will be in relevant coursework that we consider useful for this goal. I am like so close to running over. I gotta speed this up. Okay, cool. Fantastic. Then I'm gonna rant for 2 hours. So conspicuously not mentioned as part of this, right? LinkedIn, GitHub, Hack the Box. These are really cool. I don't mean to like dunk on these. This is really valuable. It's a great way to like get outreach from people, get outreach from companies, like demonstrate your knowledge. And so it's great if you have these listed, but like we're not going to look during the career fair. I'm not going to be like, oh, a GitHub link on your resume. Hang on, I need to pull that up on my phone. I'm not going to do that afterwards either. Because we need to be we need to generate enough data from talking to you to generate an interview or no interview decision that is consistent, defensible, and done. Because if we don't, we will have to work late reviewing additional data. The interview, so the career fair runs, 10 to 4, we're there at 9, preparing the like area, preparing our bench, like everything. We're there till 5, cleaning up. And chances are the people that you're talking to are salaried and OT exempt. We do not get overtime. If we're there until 9 p.m. debating the merits of particular candidates, I'm wasting my time. Like I'm not getting paid for that. So we're really heavily disincentivized to make hiring decisions that take longer than those 5 minutes. So really, I have to emphasize, don't workshop these heavily before the career fair, right? You're going to the interview stage, then you can worry. But don't be like, I'm going to sacrifice 2 hours of sleep to make my LinkedIn look beautiful. No one at the career fair will check, almost certainly. And so, if you get an interview, as interview prep, we may take a look through. We want to understand like your claimed experience, your skill level, et cetera. Like if you're like, hey, I'm a particular rank on Hack the Box, I cleared this like super crazy room, or I have this like cool GitHub project. Like, yeah, we're gonna go look. Not because like we don't trust you, it's just like, oh, that's cool. I want to check that out. So speaking of interviews, either like y'all have already talked about interviews today, or like you will later, something. I don't actually know how this is organized. But anyway, I assume you will have talked about interviews with other people. I don't have a ton to add here. Just keeping it terse, like some tips that have helped folks in my interview loops. Technical questions, just think the problem out loud, ask clarifying questions as much as you need. Okay, what's going on? Okay, fine, whatever. With behavioral questions, use the star or it's really gonna fuck me. For behavioral questions, use the star or car format to answer. And you should really, really reverse interview. If you're not like reverse interviewing during the screening, you really have to be reverse interviewing during the like actual interview. You should know what you're getting into, just in general. You should know like what is going to be expected of you if you like get this internship. I mean, both for like tactical reasons of like there are requirements to fill your second co-op, or we're still doing 2 co-ops for cybersecurity, I assume. Like you have particular requirements that need to be met there. You need to make sure that the second internship at least is going to be meeting those requirements. But also, you should be able to make an informed decision between different interviews, like in between different job offers and so on. Like if you're working for the coolest company in the world, but you're just like the guy that gets coffee, versus working for like this small scrappy startup where you will be treated as a member of the team for 3 months, you probably are like, I know that I would have picked the latter. And so, you want to have that data to be able to choose wisely. And then it's just like a couple miscellaneous notes. You should be able to talk about anything on your resume. Don't get discouraged when you get a question wrong, though. So for the first section, the screening, right, we had 3 questions. You got to get 2 right, pretty much, 2 or 3. The interviews can have a real mix. There are going to be some companies, this is like where everything starts to diverge and the guidance gets really wacky and nonsensical. There are some companies that are going to expect you to get everything. There are some companies that are going to expect you to get very, very little. So I have done interviews where we're expecting 100% bar, like not on my side. But like I've been the interviewee in that situation. And like I've lost an interview over 1 question, which sucked. But I've also been in interviews where it's like, oh, 30% is good. 30% is enough. Really hard questions. It felt terrible after that. I was texting a friend like, they're going to be idiots if they hire me after this. They're like, congratulations, you did so well. I'm like, I did not. I absolutely did not. Like, you're sure you have the right guy? They're like, yeah. It's expected. We're not looking for 100%. I wasn't really expecting 30, but sure. And so anyway, outside of interviews, right, you need to be really, truly, genuinely ready to play the numbers game, right? I rejected 97 to 98% of people that I talked to. I'm not saying you suck. I'm not saying you suck as a person. And it's really hard not to hear that sometimes after like, you're like, okay, it's fine. It just wasn't a great fit after like the first rejection. You go through like 20 and you're like, I have no interviews yet. You start to question yourself. And we're really not rejecting you, the person. And you need to be prepared to put in a lot of applications, both at the career fair, but also in general. Like 1% acceptance rate is not abnormal across the tech industry. So if you're like really struggling for a job, know that you probably have a Sisyphean mountain to climb by applying like 100 times to various different companies, by going back and like reinvigorating your resume and like figuring out your like, how do I cold contact people and how do I send a cold email? How do I, how am I presenting myself on phone screens? Like getting all that data, right? So the career fair might not be a great time, especially if you like get into the rut like I did, where you're really struggling to get interviews. It sucks. Like it's not fun. There's no sugarcoating that. But it sucks, but it's useful. It's a great tool for you to use because rejection is data. That's a really huge takeaway that I like learned at the career fair and then I honed when I got laid off during COVID. Rejection is data. You need to be able to take a rejection, a no response, and say, okay, what probably went wrong? What might have happened there? How can I optimize my resume, optimize my results, optimize my search, optimize what jobs I'm applying for to get a higher acceptance rate? And if you're paying attention, these aren't arbitrary. Some of them are. I have like seen certain recruiters like drop candidates like directly out of like an accepted position because they were just like, oh, the position's closed now. That sucks. But a lot of information, this is non-random. Take that data and you can learn at about the same rate that the company is learning about you. What are they asking you? Why might they be asking you that? Can you form trends between different companies, different positions? If there is 10 things, 10 jobs that you're like, oh, I got Cisco questions on. I think I'm gonna still keep using Juniper though. No, you need to start using Cisco. You need to be able to add that to your resume, add that to your blurbs, add that to your LinkedIn, and get that information out there that people are like, okay, this is a competent person with Cisco. We have Cisco, they'll be fine. And really, companies are not fighting over the one good applicant. We're fighting for the right applicant for very specific requirements. And so you can turn, using that like mental model of, okay, a rejection is data, how do I take that data and apply it? You can turn career fair pain into next year's gain, right? So if you're a first year, you should go. You're probably not going to get a job. It's probably going to suck, but you should go. Because you can get all of that information up front. You can find interesting companies and ask questions. You can bomb like their screening questions. It doesn't matter. And ask your own question at the end, like, oh, hey, what software, programming language do you use? What kind of, is this a network security job? Is this an application security job? Is this a cloud security job? Like, can you clarify like your day-to-day responsibilities? What kind of team would I be working on? What's like a standout, interviewee that you saw today? Like, what made them stand out? What would you be really excited to like see on my resume next year? And so on. And, you can learn what people are looking for. This isn't a secret. Like the worst thing that happens if I tell everybody, oh, hey, I really want strong application security experience with PHP and embedded devices. Oh no, next year I get 1 billion candidates to choose from that are all really qualified. That's not a bad outcome for me. I care that you're not like cheating, like you're not like telling your buddy like, oh, hey, they're gonna ask about X, Y, and Z. Print out a new copy of your resume and like white out your programming language and replace them with that. Problematic. But if you can actually like build that experience over a longer time horizon, you will have vastly more success. A company that I applied to twice, once when I was a freshman, once when I was a sophomore, I heard both times, I was like, okay, I'm hearing a particular language. I put that language front and center for my junior year career fair. They hired me. They did like the coding interview. I did it in that language, which was ridiculous. And they pulled my resume out of the pile. I know I wasn't the first choice because I got pulled over to a different hiring manager, and they were like, hey, you have security experience and you use the right programming language. Do you want to like come work for us? I was like, yes, absolutely. So really, nobody's trying to hide this information. You can talk to companies that you're interested in, like engage with them long-term, talk to people that work there, talk to alumni that work there. And we're super happy to give you information, give you tips about like, hey, study up on X, Y, and Z. And you can also not think about this on like the scale of career fairs. You can turn this into a media gain. You can go to the career fair, take all that data, digest it like the next weekend, and then be an online application machine. Take all of that, all the things that you want to be focused on, or things that you want to talk about, things that you think are going to be like trends with particular types of jobs. Like the career fair is a free source of high quality, super current information about what employers are looking for. You can use that. You need to use that. As somebody like, who came from RIT, I know how expensive it is. Please leave. Please genuinely leave as soon as you can. So go out and build skills with the things that interviewers said that they would be excited for. Doing everything isn't an option. You can't just be like, okay, here's everything that I've ever heard about things that I should learn. Don't do that. Look for trends. Look for jobs that you're more excited about. What kinds of work seems interesting to you? What kinds of work have you done in the past? Had some experience with those, like, oh, that's awesome. But if you find themes within that data, within things that you're interested in, just make sure to pursue them. And then look for similar roles online after you've bulked up your resume, after you've revamped your elevator pitch, after you're ready to like take some phone screen interviews. And then stop paying attention to everything that I've said. Go look at other presentations for tips on writing your LinkedIn, writing your resume, ensuring resume scanners can read your resume, behavioral interviewing, phone screening, like all that stuff did not get covered in here because it's not relevant to day one of the career fair, but it would be relevant then. If you start applying online, you're going to have more work to do. But anyway, with that, I am a full 15 minutes over how long I thought I'd talk. Are there any questions from the room? I can be transparent about just about everything except Amazon. If you ask me about that, I will decline. What's up? Yeah, absolutely. So where should skills be on your resume? If it's the first thing, I'm probably not going to recognize it immediately and be like, wait, what? Which is not the right vibe. I think it depends on how much you're putting there and how much you're expecting people to key on it. So I'll give an example. In my last, job hunt, was during COVID. No career fairs. Nobody wants to see you in person. So I needed to optimize my resume for viewing by resume scanners. And those are not complex machines. They take in a PDF, they match keywords between your document and the job posting, and they present a sorted list to a recruiter who then spends 15 seconds looking at it before they call you. I have the worst second page of any resume ever because it's just full of keywords of like anything that I have ever defensively done. And I do a lot. I stay engaged with a lot of stuff as evidenced by teaching here and being a senior engineer and random projects and so on. But like my second page is disgusting. I would never put that on the first page. If you have a more terse skills section, or you can distill that, especially for people, into like a project section, something that somebody would actually be like, oh, there's something interesting here to read, instead of code management, GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket, folders, I don't know. Distilling that into like projects and bumping that up is probably a good play, but it all depends on like, are those projects something that you're like, these are the 5 things I want people to remember? So hopefully that helps. I don't know. A lot of these are going to be like really nebulous. Yes, definitely. So question was, in an elevator pitch, how do you transition between, I'm talking about like my name, my major, the basic information, and talking about specific projects? I would bridge that with passion. So like I am X name, I'm X major. What I'm really passionate about is I want to obliterate every malware author ever off the face of the earth. And you are CrowdStrike, so I want to work for you. I don't know if people want to work for CrowdStrike right now. You are malware bytes, so I want to work for you. Um, and this is a project that I did which accomplishes some portion of that goal. That would be like my recommended bridge, but you could like workshop it. If it feels a little janky, that's probably still okay because you're trying to convey a lot of information in a very short amount of time. It's not like how we're normally communicating, so it's okay if it's just like a little bit odd, as long as I'm still following. For sure. Other questions?
How do you approach the elevator pitch and just the general interaction if you're coming to career fairs the first year with no actionable skills and you're just there to get you to tell them about me? How do you be honest about that without getting completely dismissed?
Yeah, so if you're a first year, how do you honestly approach companies without being like, I'm wasting your time? um, uh, interest is a really good thing. I'm interested in your company because X. And it can be like I've been at the career fair. It can be something you made up 30 seconds ago when you Googled the company name for the first time. Totally fair. The thing is, you're probably one of like 10% of people that did that, like at all. So like bringing that level of effort to, I'm interested in your company because, I'm a first year. I know I'm probably not getting a job, but like when I'm a second year or third year, how can I come back and be like the strongest candidate you've ever seen? We'll honor that. I mean, like most people are engaging with this not to be the face of like some soulless corporate machine, but because we care about having a strong like university programs, like talent pipeline and everything. So I'm not going to like be watching my clock and being like, your time is up, dude. But we may hurry you along if you have like N questions and it just like keeps going. But like having an interest in a company is genuine, and feigning an interest in a company in a believable way is genuine enough for the career fair. Other questions? What are the most common mistakes that I see as a recruiter? Probably a bad answer. I don't see that many common mistakes. I think like especially coming out of RIT, I don't see a lot of common mistakes. You have the Office of the Career Services, like there's prep work that goes into everybody like before the career fair. It's fairly high effort, and there's no one thing where I'm like, oh, that's wrong. Partially also because a lot of us have lines back to the like Office of Career Services. So if like I've talked with them like after I left, they were like, oh hey, like we have this like student struggling, like can they talk to you about like the work that you do, and like is that interesting and useful, and like can get them reinvigorated about like academia. And I'm like, probably wouldn't have worked on me, but sure. And like we have that feedback, we have that discussion, like your professors are engaged with us, like we will send information back, like chat with our favorite professors and be like, oh my god, I just saw like the worst writing ever come out of somebody failed my encryption versus hashing question for the nth time. Can we please correct that? And they're like, oh yeah. So it's there is feedback that goes into the system. There's no like, top 3 pitfalls that I could name off the top of my head. Yeah, that's a good question. I'm sorry that I don't have a super precise answer there, but I guess be reassured that the system around you does care enough to get it right, or at least get it right most of the time. So. Other question? Mhm. Yes, great question. So behavioral question is trying to evaluate like how you are going to engage with the work. Is this going to be something where you are going to be like, let's say a compatible coworker? So when one of the things that like I'm going to take software engineering as an example because it's a good example and a fairly easy one. We are going to, did I repeat the question? What's a behavioral question? Anyway, so something that's going to happen when you become a software engineer that hasn't really happened in college is that people are going to have real opinions about the quality, readability, and maintainability of software that you produce. There are proxies for that are built into courses, but there is not a team lead with 20 years of experience, you know, as long as you've been alive, they've been a software engineer saying you're gonna need to rewrite that whole PR. And if you are somebody who cannot say, okay, let me learn from that. If you're somebody that's like, my code is my baby, don't touch my baby, don't touch my baby, you're gonna have a really hard time all summer because people are going to be coming at you with conventions and standards and maintainability like, you know, requirements that they need for their application that you're not gonna be able to meet without turning this into kind of an emotional fight. And it needs to be not emotional, it needs to be clinical. So that's like an example of a behavioral kind of question that we would do. In general, you should also be on the lookout for questions that start with something along the lines of describe a time when. Describe a time when you had some disagreements with somebody on a university project and had to sort them out. How did you sort them out and what was the ultimate result? You know, did the project succeed? Did it fail? Whatever. And for those, definitely check out the STAR format response, situation, task, action, result, which is just a really great way to summarize, you know, what was the situation around me, what needed to happen, what did I do, and what was the outcome of that. So you will see those generally not on the career fair itself, but in later stage interviews, those tend to be like super important. So, other questions? Yep.
So given like the whole, like this whole process that you go through, it's so robust, have you ever gone with a candidate who you regretted?
The process is robust. Have we ever gone with a candidate that we've regretted? Yes. The goal of hiring is not to be foolproof. If you want to be 100% certain that, you know, somebody is going to be successful at the company, you would ask them infinite questions. You would take infinite time and they would be perpetually on probation until they died. And that's not, like we have a limited amount of time where we need to make a call. An internship is a really good way for us to get involved with candidates, with university programs, and we essentially get like a 3-month trial run, right? Like, so we can say at the end of that internship, like, oh, I'm really sorry, like you didn't get a return offer. I've declined to send return offers before. We've had issues that were found only when they were full-time. But by and large, my personal success rate is fairly high. I would say we have probably about 90%, 80 to 90% conversion between people that I'm like, hire them as an intern and hire them full-time. So I'm pretty happy about that. Other questions? Nobody's raising hands. All right. Yeah, thank y'all. You've been a great audience.